Hello, and happy marvelous Monday, everybody. I hope that you are well. I am super excited that you are joining me today. Thank you so much for watching on Facebook. Thank you for those who are watching on LinkedIn as well as YouTube. I am Carissa Span, the abundantly blessed landlord and tenant expert, and I am delighted that you've taken time out of your schedule to join me today. This is what I do each and every Monday. I share information to help the landlords as well as tenants to positively impact the entire rental community. So today, I want to touch on a subject matter about a new law that is aimed to hold slumlords accountable for not making repairs, especially in the District of Columbia. Before I get into that, let me just put my disclaimer up that any information that I share is not legal advice. However, it is the industry's best tips as well as practices. And because this is something that I enjoy doing, I ask that if you find this information of value, if you find it helpful, to please like, please tag, and or share. Also, if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go to the YouTube page, smash that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I'm live and online. All right. So my only goal today is to share information to make sure that it's clear, make sure that it's relevant, but I want to make sure that you can hear me okay. Before I dive deep into this information, just let me know in the comment section. Can you hear me clearly? I want to make sure my audio is good. All right. Let me know in the comment section in the chat box. Just put a 1 if you can hear me okay. And I also like to acknowledge viewers who are tuned in. If this is your first time, let me know where you're located. Where are you on the map? Are you in DC? Are you in South Carolina? Are you in Texas? Let me know where you're watching from. Hey, Joe, thank you so much for tuning in. Like. Listen, Joe, if you like it, I love it. Thank you so much for tuning in today. All right. So if you can hear me, okay, please drop a 1 in the chat box for me. I want to make sure that my audio is good. All right. And again, welcome. This is what I do each and every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So when I'm live, if you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, please always feel free to drop it in the chat box. I always respond to your questions, okay? I want to make sure that information that I'm presenting today is clear. And so if you have questions, that's what this time is for. I promise not to hold you long, but long enough to present the information. Okay, thank you for that, Joe. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. Okay, so let me get into this because this conversation today, it's meant to be thought-provoking, and I want to engage your feedback. I want to know your input on what I'm talking about and what I'm sharing today. And also want to know if you are aware, if you're a landlord, if you are a tenant, if you are thinking about becoming a landlord, or maybe you are a housing professional. In any event, it impacts the rental community. Maybe not you directly, but maybe your grandmother, maybe your auntie, maybe your uncle or cousins. Somebody is definitely impacted in the rental community. I'm sure somebody that you know, right, may be impacted by the information that I'm sharing today. So please make sure that you like, you tag, and or share the information today. So I'm talking about the new bill that has been introduced by a DC council member. And this bill is aimed to hold landlords accountable for not making repairs. And so it's all about what landlords as well as tenants need to know. If you're watching a replay, thank you so much. In the chat box, if you're watching a replay, drop replay in the comment section. I would like to respond to you as well. All right, so let me just get into this conversation because there is a lot to unpack in a short amount of time, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to get through it. And if you have questions, if I'm not on the air and you want to reach out to me later, you can always email me. Let me give you my email address now. in case I don't do it later, I want to make sure that you're able to contact me. Here's my email address at the bottom here, info@landlordlife.com. That's how you can contact me if you want coaching, consulting, if you want to work with me, if there are some upcoming topics you would like for me to cover, I definitely will do that. That is my email address right there at the bottom, info@landlordlife.com. All right, so let me get into the discussion today because this is going to be juicy. And I know that some people are not aware as a landlord as well as a tenant, especially in the District of Columbia. All right, I know that I have viewers who tune in from various jurisdictions, various states and cities, but today is all about new laws that have been in a new law correction that has been introduced by a DC council member. All right, and so here a council member has introduced a new law which is aimed to stop landlords who don't take care of their rental property and their buildings. The goal is to prevent them from renting more units in the city. And so here's the thing. In this matter, if a landlord gets 5 or more serious violations in a year, like problems that can hurt people's health or safety, they will not be allowed to rent out more property in the District of Columbia. That's what this new law that's been proposed. It hasn't been implemented yet, but it has been proposed. All right. If this bill goes into effect, it will make it a lot harder for DC landlords. I know that other jurisdictions are always watching to see what the District of Columbia is doing, the laws that are being implemented, and a lot of other jurisdictions are starting to follow the lead of Washington, D.C. The goal is to crack down on landlords. I know that some of you have been upset, you're furious about this new proposed law, and I understand that because DC is already pro-tenant. This can make it harder for landlords. But again, it's aimed at landlords who have received 5 or more serious violations in a year. Okay. So I want people to understand how important it is to follow this very simple philosophy that I always share. If you treat your business like a business, it will pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, it will pay you like a hobby. Okay. And so in treating a rental business like a business, there are things that landlords must do. Okay. You must maintain a home that is decent, safe, and sanitary. And yes, that does require landlords to make repairs. Not only to make repairs, but to make timely repairs. And to also make repairs that are complete. So before I get into the meat of this, let me show you some pictures because in addition to me being in this property management space, many of you know that I am also a housing inspector. And sometimes when I go into rental property, it can be heartbreaking, it can be disturbing. And so I just want to just give this disclaimer that the pictures that I'm about to share, they may be a little ugly in nature. So please prepare and brace yourself for what I'm about to show you. Okay. And for those of you who have never seen anything like this, my whole goal is to bring awareness to the rental community. Because just because you may not have experienced it and because you may not be aware does not mean that this problem doesn't exist. And this problem is not isolated to Washington, D.C. This problem is all throughout the United States when there are landlords who are refusing or just for whatever reason are not making repairs. So let me share my screen because I want you to see what some issues look like for tenants in rental property. So let me pull up my first picture for you today and let's have a conversation about that. All right, so give me 1 second. Here's my first picture. And we're talking about slumlords. That's what this bill is all about. It's all about slumlords. All right, so here, this is a window. So what we're looking at here, this is plastic. And around the window, you can see the dry, rotted wood. Okay, and instead, this is the window frame. Instead of the landlord making the repair, they just put plastic around it. This is the behavior of a slumlord. They don't choose to make repairs. They choose to put a Band-Aid over the problem. All right. Here is another picture I want to share. This is a wall. And you see the holes in the wall here. The tenant reported this problem to the landlord. The landlord refused to repair the wall. Over time, this wall started to give way more and more. Now, could this problem have been the tenant's issue? Perhaps. But when the landlord does not make repair, the problem does not go away on its own. Here is another picture. This is a ceiling, okay? I want to park on this picture for a few seconds because to me, it is not clear how any human being would allow a renter to live in this space. Now, this did not just happen overnight, okay? Over a period of time, there was obviously a leak. Maybe the pipes were leaking. The landlord did not go in and make the repairs. And so the ceiling collapsed. But now take a look at the walls on the side here. So it lets you know that something has been going on for an extreme amount of time. All right, let me show you another picture. This is the bedroom. This is a rental property where a tenant actually lives and an owner is renting this out to a tenant. This is the bedroom. You see the ceiling? Okay, so there was some water damage. Water was penetrating this ceiling and eventually it partially collapsed. Some of the plaster fell down. But look at the wall. See the window frame here at the top? Can you see that? I want to make sure that you can see this picture okay. Type yes in the comments section if you can see this picture okay. This here is the window frame. It is deteriorated. Some of the paint has come from off the wall. Some of the plaster, the drywall has fallen down. If you can see this picture okay for me, type yes in the comment section for me. Now, this is a bunk bed. This is a child's bedroom. And an owner is getting paid each month for this rental property. Okay, I see your comment. Thank you so much for letting me know that you can see the picture. Let me move on to the next one because I do have more. And I promise that sometimes these issues, they start out small, but over time, it gets worse. So this is the hallway. You see this wall here. Now, what's happening with this wall is that the landlord had gone in at some point or sent their handyman in to make repairs. They never completed the repair. Instead of completing the repair, which means that they plastered the wall, the top part, but they didn't finish the bottom. So they did a partial repair. The contractor never went back. They put duct tape over this electrical hazard here. I'm characterizing and describing behavior of slumlords. A slumlord is someone who does not make repairs, someone who does not adhere to the rules and the regulations that are in place to successfully run a rental business. So the contractor did a partial repair. Maybe the owner didn't follow up to make sure the repair was completed. In any event, it's unacceptable. And so that's what this new law that's been proposed is aimed to prevent landlords with this behavior, refusing to make repairs, to continue to rent. Okay, let me go to another picture. This is the bathroom. Now, if you can see here, this is the floor tile. So this toilet, there's an opening right beside it. You can see down in the kitchen, and the tenant is actually living here with exposed pipes. So when the tenant uses the bathroom, water leaks down to the first floor, which is why the ceiling partially collapsed in the kitchen. This landlord was made aware of this issue. This did not happen overnight. Let me show you another picture. And again, this is the bathroom. Now, if you can see where my pointer is on the right, the far right of this toilet, this is the tub. And all of this is exposed under the floor tile. This landlord refused to make repairs. So this is under the tile. This is the subfloor. This is the tub right here on the far right. So this tenant can't even use the bathroom without it leaking down to the first floor. They can't take a bath for fear of maybe the tub is going to collapse and fall down to the lower level. Let me show you some more pictures. This is the kitchen, right? So remember, I showed you the tub. I showed you the toilet. The bathroom is right above the kitchen. And yes, a tenant is still living in this rental property. And so this new bill that City Council member has introduced is aimed to prevent landlords from continuing to rent in the city if this is their behavior and if this is their practice. So if you have any comments, please drop it in the comment section. Hello, Ms. Bell. Thank you so much. I hope that you are well. Thank you for tuning in today. You said you want to learn from me, and I am here. I'm here for it. That's what I do. That's why I do these segments each and every Monday. So now let me go back because I do have some more pictures to share. But here's what I want landlords to know and understand about being a rental housing provider, a residential housing provider, because being a landlord is so much more than collecting money at the beginning of the month. It's about managing that rental property, and it's also about successfully managing that landlord and tenant relationship. And one of the things that I always say to landlords, if you are not capable of managing your property, it is absolutely okay and possibly in your best interest to hire a property manager, a license, if it is the requirement of that jurisdiction for that property manager to be licensed. Hire a professional who can successfully and professionally manage your property. Because in situations like this, with the pictures that I've just shared, and I'll pull the pictures back up so that we can see them again, in situations like this, landlords are fined and will be fined. It will cost a lot of money. I've seen landlords and owners lose their property because the fines were so great that they couldn't afford to pay them. The money was placed in escrow, and tenants were advised by the court to put their money in escrow and not pay the landlord. And so here's the danger when that happens. If your tenants are, as a landlord, if your tenants are by law required to put money in escrow, and if you are not able to access that money, you are still expected to run and operate your business. I'm sure you may have mortgage that may be due. You may have insurance. You may have taxes. You may have utilities that you have to pay. You may have staff, payroll, and all the other expenses that comes with being a rental property owner. Those fees and that money does not stop. And I promise that no money coming in is bad for business. All right, so let me keep going because I have a lot to cover today. And I want to share tips for some landlords on today. I always tell landlords, first and foremost, that when you are running a business, Ms. Bell, before I do that, Ms. Bell, were you able to see some of the pictures that I just shared? I recognize that I have viewers who are tuning in a little late, especially on the LinkedIn page. Let me pull these pictures back up And today I'm talking about a new law that was addressed or introduced by a DC council member, which is aimed to prevent landlords or slumlords, if you will, from renting property in DC. So let me pull these pictures back up, and then I'll get into the tips that I want to share today. So this is the ceiling. Okay. There was obviously a leak. Do we know how long? I don't know how long, but all I know is this is unacceptable to allow anybody to live in a situation like this. I don't understand how any human being would allow another human to live in this condition. I mean, not even an animal or a dog. I don't understand how people would allow this to happen and really not have a heart or care while they're still collecting rent. This is absolutely unacceptable. And that's why laws are in place. And in some jurisdictions, the laws are going to get tougher on landlords. Now, there are some states, there are some jurisdictions, the laws are in favor of the landlord and tenants have a hard time. But that's not the situation, because this property is in a jurisdiction where the laws are in favor of the tenant. The tenant obviously was not aware of their rights. They did not know to call and report this landlord beyond complaining and what they had already done. And so they lived in this situation thinking and believing that it's okay. And this is absolutely not okay. And again, here, let me show another picture. This is the bathroom. And here, this is the floor tile where you see missing towels. That's exposed pipes. The toilet, when a tenant sit on the toilet, it shakes, it rocks. So when a tenant sits on the toilet, it kind of go like this. It's not even stable to the floor. Can you imagine living in that environment or condition? You go to use the bathroom and you're not sure if you're going to fall through the floor or not. That's completely unacceptable. And that's what this law is all about. It's all about preventing landlords from putting additional property in queue to get paid. Nobody should live like that. Hello, Miss Parker. Thank you so much for tuning in. Mr. Bell, I do apologize. Thank you. Hey, Kim. Yeah, that's so sad. So let me share some tips for landlords, because as a housing provider, you should definitely always know and understand the importance of prioritizing maintenance. Stay proactive in addressing housing code violations promptly. You want to do that to avoid accumulating citations and fines and fees that may hinder your ability to rent out your units, your current units and new units. That's what this law is all about. You definitely want to stay informed and familiarize yourself with local housing code regulations, because things change. What is applicable today may change next month. It may change next year. And so what is in place now is not etched in stone forever. So that means as a landlord, you should always stay abreast of what the laws are. That's why I come on each and every Monday to provide information for landlords and for tenants. Okay. You want to make sure that when it comes to your tenants, that you keep an open line of communication. Be transparent in your communication with your landlords. With your tenants. You want to address all concerns promptly, because if not, and especially in jurisdictions that are pro-tenant, especially in those areas where a tenant complained, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, I have this issue. Can you please fix my problem? When they begin to complain and you don't address the matters promptly, tenants are now learning their rights and they will report landlords. I've said it, and I've said it several times just this year, that we are going to see a lot more cases going to court filed against landlords by tenants. Okay. Now, here are some tips I want tenants to know and understand. I'm coming to the comment section. If you are a tenant, if you have issues going on in your rental property, first and foremost, please always report that to your landlord promptly. Don't wait a week or 2 weeks, a month, 3 months, or what have you before you report the issue. Promptly report matters to your landlord. Give them time to follow up. Now, if it's an emergency, they should respond within a time frame allotted in that specific jurisdiction. Most emergencies must be repaired or abated within 24 hours. But then again, it also depends on where that rental property is, and that would determine how fast a landlord must respond to your request. Okay. Always report your living conditions, your housing conditions. If they don't meet the regulations, if they don't meet the code, the safety standard of whatever state or city you're living in, always report that, because you deserve to live in a place that's decent, safe, and sanitary. So let me go to the comment section, and then I'm coming back to the tips. You said you're still looking at the pictures. Okay. All right. All right. And if I have to pull the pictures up again, and I think I will definitely do that. Mr. Bell, you said always report it on time and fix it. Absolutely. You should always report the issues and allow the landlord to fix it on time. If you're the landlord, you always want to respond timely to tenants when they make complaints. So here's the second tip for tenants. I say this frequently. Tenants, please know what your rights are. It doesn't matter if you're in a housing program or if you're just a market tenant. So here's a difference between the two for those of you who are not aware. A market tenant is someone who is renting a property. They are not receiving a government housing subsidy. Their rent is not subsidized by the government or any other organization or entity. That means that if the rent is $1,200 or $3,000 as a market tenant or a market renter, they are paying all of the rent on their own. Now, someone who's participating in some sort of housing subsidy program, their rent is being subsidized by the government. That means that maybe the tenant may pay a portion, but it all just depends on their income. In programs, usually the rent is comprised based off of the tenant's income. Now, there are certain guidelines, there are certain requirements depending on the type of program that the tenant is participating in. But whether it's a market tenant or a housing participant, tenants know what your rights are. Okay. You do not have to accept conditions that are deplorable, where the property is falling apart, where the landlord is not making repairs. Nobody deserves to live in that manner. I don't care who it is. It doesn't matter what city, market tenant, housing participant. Nobody deserves to live like an animal in a cage. All right, so here is my third tip for tenants today. I'm gonna bring the pictures back up because there is something here that I want the public to be aware of. And that's what this bill is all about. So here's a third tip for tenants. You want to advocate for change. When you see something, say something. Stay informed about proposed bills and laws, regulations that are aiming to help protect you. All right. And when you find this information, share it with others. If this information is not helpful for you, share it with somebody else who is a tenant or a landlord. Let me share the pictures again, because I want those of you who may have jumped on late to see and be part of the discussion today. So this is a bedroom window here we're looking at. So this is an opening in the window. And instead of and this is the window frame, right? So there's an opening here. Instead of the landlord replacing the frame, repairing this damage, this is insulation behind the wall here, which should be behind the wall rather. Instead of this landlord making a repair, they put plastic on top of it. But this is an opening, okay? This is a hallway wall, and it's getting worse. And so when you touch it, the drywall just kind of crumbles. And as you can see, I'm touching it here. Yes, I'm a housing inspector as well. So when I touched the wall, it just started to crumble more and more. I've shown this picture several times, but this is horrific. This place had been leaking for so long that the ceiling collapsed. This is not an overnight problem. This problem accumulated over months, over years, actually. All right. Let me show you the kids' bedroom. How many of you here have children, or you know somebody who have children? Put a 3 in the comment section. If you have kids, if you know somebody who have kids, put a 3 in the comment section. I have 4 kids. Okay. I have 4 kids, and my kids are now starting, they're married, they have their own family, and I cannot imagine any child living in this condition. This is a child's bunk bed. You see the ceiling here? So the roof had obviously been leaking, but it had been leaking for so long that part of the plaster, the ceiling plaster, has fallen. This drywall around the window has fallen. Look at this window frame here. Can you see that? And this is a child's bedroom. I can't imagine any child having to go through this. Maybe in the middle of the night, they wake up to rain coming into their room. This is horrible. This is the bathroom. This is the tub. This is the floor. And I was trying to get a picture that would show this, that you can actually look down and see the kitchen, because this toilet and the tub, these pipes have leaked for so many years that it just messed the floor. The floor just kind of just gave way. That's the kitchen. That's unacceptable. This is another room. Leaks all throughout the property. And the landlord is still getting paid. Was, past tense, not anymore. But the landlord was still getting paid to rent this property. This is another area of the house. And so when this happens, unfortunately, it negatively impacts the rental community, because here's why. Tenants will complain. When tenants become aware of their rights, they're going to complain. They may report it to news media. They're going to tell all their friends, family, and loved ones, and especially if they're tuned into this segment that I do on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube each week, right? They're going to talk about this landlord. And it makes it really, really hard, because it puts a bad and a negative taste in the mouth of people who really care about tenants and renters. And again, it doesn't matter where they live. And if there's a problem with how a tenant lives, that's why I believe in educating tenants. When I do housing inspections, when I do consulting or coaching, and I show landlords how to inspect their rental properties, I always tell them, if you see something, say something, educate tenants, because sometimes people honestly don't know. And I know that sometimes people say, well, Carissa, that's just common sense. Tenants should know. And tenants say the same thing. Well, I told my landlord and they didn't make repairs, and landlords should know. And I get it. I can agree with both sides of the aisle. But here's the thing. Sometimes people don't have common sense, right? People do things for 2 reasons: because either they don't know or because they don't care. In any event, I don't decide. It's not my place. That's above my pay grade to determine why a person does or does not do what they're supposed to do. I believe in educating. And so as a landlord, if, like I said, if you see something, say something. If a tenant is having a problem or a challenge keeping up that rental property, cleaning it, if they have a problem with reporting issues promptly, then maybe, just maybe, consider doing inspections more often. But it should be in writing. Because if you are inspecting a property, whether it's you or someone else who's managing a property for you, maybe you have a representative, I don't know. But if you're doing inspections more often or frequently, then you'll see these type of issues before they become massive. If you take care of the problem when it's small, it won't cost you an arm, a leg, an eye, an ear, a neck, a back, and anything else that you may have to pay. And in this matter, where I'm talking about this law that has been proposed by a DC council member, rightfully so, maybe landlords should be penalized if they are renting properties like this. And yes, this property, the pictures that I've shown today, are in Washington, D.C. Let me show you another picture. Let me show you one more picture. Let me go back to this picture here. This is a partial repair. So if you see here, you can tell that someone started to do some work. They recognized that something was going on with the wall and it needed to be repaired. Well, they started the repair. They didn't complete this plaster. They didn't sand it and paint it. As a matter of fact, they only corrected just that one part. They didn't even do the entire wall. And instead of replacing this, you see this duct tape here? Why would anybody think that it's okay to put duct tape on a problem? As if the problem is going to go away. I can't make that make sense. Duct tape is not the solution. Now, many, many years ago, true story, I hired a gentleman to take care of maintenance for a property. And we thought that he had skills, but his solution was to put duct tape on everything. A leaking pipe, he just wrapped duct tape around it. A hole in the wall, he just put duct tape on it. And little did he know, I'm the type of person who follow up, whether it's an employee, whether it's a contractor. And I also tell landlords to do the same thing. Follow up to make sure the repairs are completed, because it's not enough to have tenants to complain, to say, hey, I have a problem. You send a contractor out there to make the repairs, but yet nobody follows up to make sure that it's done correctly. And that happens a lot. But the contractor is off the hook. If that matter goes before the judge doesn't really care that you had a contractor who went out there and didn't complete the repair. The owner is held accountable. And it is a costly mistake that some landlords are finding themselves up against. There are fines, there are fees, there are penalties as a result of not making repairs. And so in this matter today, where City Council has introduced this bill, I know that a lot of landlords are upset. There are really good landlords in DC, but let me just remind you, and please remember that if you are in DC, that this law is aimed to prevent landlords who have been fined at least 5 or more times in 1 year. So landlords who have housing code violations, you are not going to be able to introduce new property for tenants to rent out if this bill is passed. And I need you to be aware of that. I need you to know that. As a matter of fact, I need you to share this with all of your friends who are investors, who are thinking about becoming investors, because as an investor, you want to make sure that your property manager, your property management company, whoever is taking care of that rental property for you, that they are aware of the laws and they are executing your wishes, your desires, in accordance to the regulations and the policies that are in place. Okay, so let me go to the comment section. If you have any comments, please, please, please. I want to know what they are. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you so much from New Mexico. All right, thank you, New Mexico. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, WDRC. What to do when tenants will not let you in when you give a 48-hour notice. What to do when the tenant causes the issues that needs to be repaired, such as holes in the walls. They don't just appear. I definitely am happy that you raised these questions. What do you do when a tenant does not allow you in to make the repair? You've given the tenant 48-hour notice, and they are responsible for the holes in the wall. And yes, we know that holes do not just appear. So if you are in a situation where the tenant is not allowing you in to make the repairs, first and foremost, document. Documentation beats conversation any day. Document, document, document. So treating your business like a business. Don't get upset, meaning don't wear your feelings on your sleeve. Don't get emotional. Don't argue with tenants when they don't allow you in. If that is a violation of your lease, then I strongly recommend that you enforce your lease. Take the tenant to court. But in order to take the tenant to court, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. Okay. So how can you prove that you've given this tenant 48-hour notice and they refuse to let you in? You've sent notification. It's in writing. Okay. You're going to provide that to the court. You're going to provide pictures of you actually going to the property. I strongly recommend before you enter the property, you take pictures of the address. If it's an apartment, if it's a condo, take a picture of that door. Take a picture of and make sure that you always have someone with you, or that you send people out in teams of 2. Because if the tenant is not letting you in, have someone to take a picture of you knocking on the door. Okay. And if the tenant does not answer, please make sure that you always have documentation or something with you to say, sorry, we missed you. Maybe if you have a hang tag, I don't know if you have a hang tag, that's something that can go on the doorknob to say, sorry, we missed you. We came for the inspection today, or we were trying to come in for repairs. And if you don't have that, no worries. You can type up a letter and have it with you in advance so that when you go to the property, just in case you can't get in, you can leave the letter on the door on today's date and make sure it's dated for the day of that inspection or the day that you're going out to make repairs. Have it dated for that day with the tenant's name, the address, showing that you were there that day to make repairs or the inspection. Sorry that you missed them, and you leave that on the door. You take a picture of that. All right. Any conversations that you have with the tenant, follow up in writing. Send that tenant a letter. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, sorry we missed you today. We came out. We were at your property today to make repairs or to conduct inspections. Sorry we missed you. We didn't have a key, whatever. You want to document that, because when you take the tenant to court, you have to have all of your ducks in a row to show the judge that you've made attempts to get in. The tenant was not there. Maybe the tenant changed the locks, right? Some of those things are out of your control when a tenant is not cooperating. I get it. Sometimes stuff happens, and I've seen some crazy stuff. I'm not surprised, but always document what you're trying to do, because if you don't document it and the tenant reports you, and if you have nothing, no evidence in place to support or to show that you've made attempts to make repairs, when in fact it's the tenant's fault that you were not able to get in, right? And they complain against you, there's nothing that you can do, because you're going to be perceived as a potential slumlord. All right. So follow up, schedule another date. After maybe that second or that third time, then definitely enforce your lease. But those were really great questions. Thank you so much for that. I know that happens a lot. I had one tenant, bless her heart. She was crafty, and she said, oh, I'm not going to be in town. I'm going to be out of town, so I'm not going to be there. And we didn't have a key because she changed the lock. Well, it was an emergency. So there was a pipe in her place that was leaking in the unit below. And so we had to get in, we had to make the emergency repairs. So we went into the property. I had a team of contractors, plumbers, and everybody, carpenters and stuff on standby, locksmith, because we needed to get in. And like I said, the tenant changed the lock, 2 locks on the door. We didn't have the key. So we went in, and the bathtub was wet as if somebody took a shower. Now, remember, I said this tenant told me that she was out of town and nobody would be home, and we could not get in allegedly because she knew that she changed the locks and we didn't have the key, and so sometimes people just do stuff. It just doesn't make sense to me why especially when you have, if you're a tenant, let me just park here for a second. So if you have a tenant, you are a tenant rather, and you have a landlord that's trying to make repairs, allow the landlord to make the repairs. If you have a landlord who cares about you and wants to make sure that your home is decent, safe, and sanitary, I see no reason to um, try to prevent them from doing the right thing. They just want to make sure that your home is what it's supposed to be. Now, there are no laws that say that you have to like each other, that you have to fall madly in love with each other. There's nothing in place that says that must happen. And I get it that sometimes personality and there are some personality clashes. There's like this war going on. The landlord may not like the tenant, or the tenant may not like the landlord. Doesn't matter. Just treat each other, treat everybody with respect. Landlords make the repairs, tenants report the problem, and usually that brings about harmony, more ways that will bring about a positive change than the negative impact. But let me keep going. All right, you said you have a question. Is it a bad repair if the landlord gave me a broken jam door, fix it up, it's old, it's not new, she doesn't have money to pay for tenants, and the inspector passed it? All right, that's a loaded question. And unfortunately, this landlord of yours, if that's the behavior of the landlord, that they gave you a broken door and they refuse to make repairs, they do fall into the category of a slumlord. That is the behavior of a slumlord. Okay. Now, if the inspector passed that unit, that rental unit, here's what you can do. You can contact the supervisor of that inspector and ask if someone can come out to do a quality control inspection. And if they are willing to do that, here's what happens. The supervisor or the supervisor will designate someone to come out to make sure, or to assess the property to see if in fact the first inspector cited the problem correctly. So I would definitely, and that's a great question, Mr. Bell, definitely speak to a supervisor regarding that matter to see if that property should have in fact passed the inspection. So let me just, and please, if you have comments or questions, drop it in the comment section. I see your comment, I'm gonna come to you. But let me just say this, as a housing inspector, I have colleagues and friends who are also housing inspectors. No two set of eyes are the same. So I can go in and inspect the property. Somebody can come behind me and may or may not see the things that I've cited in the inspection. But in a situation like this, where repairs are obviously questionable, I would definitely recommend speaking to a supervisor over that inspector. And there's no harm in doing so. It's, it's no ill against that landlord, but you want to make sure that this landlord is doing what they're supposed to do. Hey, Ronnie G, thank you for tuning in. How to make a tenant pay for bed bug treatment. Tenant lived in a unit for 2 years with no issues before. The family member came to visit and now they have bed bugs. Ronnie G, let me ask this question. Is it in your lease that the tenant is going to be responsible for the bed bug treatment? Let me know in the chat box, in the comment section. Oh, you're absolutely welcome. So, Ronnie G, is it in your lease? Because if it's in your lease that the tenant is responsible for bed bug treatment, then absolutely. Here's why that's important. So, in my lease package is at least 61 pages long, no exaggeration. Okay? My lease package is at least 61 pages long in my lease. Oh, you're welcome. In my lease, I include who's responsible for maintenance. I include who's responsible, for instance, for bed bugs. So here's one of the things that you could do, depending on where the rental property is. Okay, you can always, at the lease renewal, implement new policy or changes to the lease. All right. If you're in a jurisdiction where you are allowed to renew the lease and implement changes to the lease. Now, if it's an area where it's perpetual and after the first year is up, it just automatically roll over to month and you don't necessarily have to do lease renewals, or maybe it's a challenge to change terms of the lease agreement, then you might be up a creek without a paddle. But here is why it's important to add this language to your lease. Please make a note of this. Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, you are responsible for reporting infestation. Infestation of bugs, rodents. You want to be very specific. Now, let me define infestation. Infestation is defined as two or more mice, 2 or more roaches, 2 or more spiders, 2 or more bed bugs, 2 or more stink bugs, whatever. That's what infestation is. So in your lease, you should clearly state that the tenant is responsible to notify you within 5 days. Okay? They need to notify you within 5 days of recognizing they have a problem. And if they fail to do that within 5 days, they are responsible for the financial cost to treat and remove or whatever, get rid of the problem. Okay? That must be in writing. Because if not, how can you, now here's my question. Here's the magic question. How can you enforce something that does not exist? If it's not in writing, you can't enforce it. It doesn't exist. You can't hold the tenant responsible, even if they are responsible, if it's not in writing in many jurisdictions. And so that's why it should be in the lease. How can you get a copy of my lease? Please email me. Let me give you my email address. Let me give you my email address. I want you to email me. I will send you that by tomorrow. That's my email address at the bottom right there. info@landlordlife.com. info@landlordlife.com. All right. So now let me just go back, because I know that some of you came in a little late, and today we're talking about a new law in the District of Columbia that's been proposed by DC City Council to essentially hold landlords accountable and to prevent landlords who have been fined 5 or more times from renting property in the District of Columbia. True story. Please be aware of the laws. Please be aware of the changes that are coming down the pipe. And if you're not in DC, stay tuned, because the laws are changing throughout the country, because there are a lot of complaints regarding landlords. All right. So let me just go back. I want to share some pictures. And if you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, I know that I'm a little over time today. I may not be able to get through everything today, but that's what this segment is all about. That's why I do this each and every Monday. And I may not be able to get through everything, but I am excited to give you my email address. If you need more information, if you want to work with me, if you need coaching, if you need consultant, that is the email address right there. Please email me. I know that some of you are tuning in, your tenants. And I think it was about a week or 2 ago, I introduced an affordable housing workshop where I show tenants, I show people, I show family how to find and apply for Section 8 that is immediately available. If you are interested in that, please email me at info@landlordlife.com. I am going to do a Black Friday special. So anybody who signs up for that session, again, that's just looking for finding and applying for Section 8 programs. Anybody that is interested, a Black Friday special is going to be, you pay for yourself to get in. And yes, we do charge a nominal fee. It's only $37, but we provide resources, tools, and information. You pay for yourself and somebody else can come in for free. That's my Black Friday special. I just wanted to put that in the way. Ronnie G, you said here, And thank you so much for tuning in from the YouTube channel. How can you tell if the tenant told you in 5 days? They would say, it just happened 2 days ago. That is a great question, because here's the thing. Now, if it's infestation doesn't happen in 2 days, right? So if it's a bad problem, then you already know it didn't just happen in 2 days. So if it's, like I said, infestation is defined as 2 or more, okay? And so if it's infested, and I have inspected a property where it was, I believe it was a 6-unit building, and every apartment in that building was severely infested with bed bugs. I literally had to put on boots to go in because it was that bad. There were bed bugs everywhere. The furniture, the corners of the walls. And here's a telltale sign. So as a housing inspector, a property manager, property owner, since I'm talking about bed bugs, I'm going to share this one last tip, and then I do have to go, but I have provided my email address. Here's a telltale sign that there is some sort of bug infestation. Could be bed bug, could be roaches, but when you walk into a rental property, and I tell all property managers, even when I'm conducting training, and if you need me to come out to train you or your staff, I would definitely do that. I specialize in affordable housing. I specialize in inspections, things of that nature. But I tell people this: one of the things you should always do when you go into a rental property, and I just have this, I don't know if I should call it a good habit or a bad habit, but I tell people to do this whenever you go into somebody's house: apartment, condo, single family house, townhouse, trailer home, crack house, doesn't matter. Always look up at the ceiling, look in the corners of the walls, look for brown or black spots. If you see a lot of that in the ceiling, in the corners, could be infestation. So maybe next week I'll come back and I'll show some pictures from inspections that I've conducted, and the owners have given me consent to show the pictures that I do share. So let me just say that. So if you see those spots on the wall like that, it could be infested. All right. And definitely do more housing inspections, maybe do inspections quarterly. That way, if there's some sort of issues trying to creep up, you're kind of aware in advance. Don't only conduct an inspection once a year, because if you allow the problem to exist for that extent of time, then it's going to cost you more money to treat that problem. All right, here's the last question for the day. I'll come back next week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What happens when an agency like Supportive Housing has a contract with a slumlord management company, and that relationship affects the tenant in negative ways? That is a great question. Here's a thing about some of these programs. They don't always have adequate staff to manage the caseload. And when that happens, slum management companies are allowed to rent their properties. If you find, that's a great question, and if you find that this is taking place, I believe this is in New Mexico, if I can recall correctly. This matters in New Mexico. And when that happens, I would strongly suggest that you write the caseworker, write the social worker, as well as that property management company, a letter, CC everybody, addressing your concerns and your complaints. But you want to make sure that you are following up and you document by providing pictures of the problem. Because if the program, caseworkers, if the management company, if they are not on the same team, and if the housing agency is not, let's say for instance, the housing agency isn't on top of that slum management company, then that is a great disservice, because the tenant is now, or the tenants are now, living with this impression that it's okay to live in that condition, and clearly it's not. So I would definitely suggest that you reach out to the supportive service agency, as well as the management company, and address your concerns. Do it in writing and follow up until you get the results that you need and are looking for. Hello, Mr. Jonathan. You said it can be discoloration from possible mold. That is true. That is true. Now, to that, Jonathan, I like to add, and that's a nice picture, by the way. I like your profile picture. Very, very nice. But now mold is a little different. So mold might be like little smaller circles, but yes, it could be mold. But now if it's infestation, if you think it's infestation, since Jonathan has brought up a valid point that discoloration could be possible mold, I would definitely recommend that you get maybe a mold inspector in there, get a pest control company to come in and take a look at the matter so that you can correctly and effectively identify whatever the problem is. But again, definitely make sure that you put all of these requirements of the tenant in writing in your lease, because if not, you cannot enforce something that does not exist. It should always be in writing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, beautiful people, for tuning in on Facebook, on LinkedIn and YouTube. My time is up. I thank you for yours. If you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go over to Landlord Life. Smash that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I am live and online. Also, so today I talked about this new bill that's been proposed by a DC council member aimed to hold landlords accountable, right? And so I shared 3 tips for landlords. Let me just do a quick recap here. The landlord tips are: number 1, prioritize maintenance. All right. Number 2, you want to make sure that you stay informed and familiarize yourself with the laws, any changes that have taken place, any license requirements or restrictions. You want to be abreast of that. Third and finally, for landlords, you want to maintain an open line of communication with your tenants. Tenant tips are: report all issues to your landlords promptly. You want to know what your rights are, because you do have rights as a tenant. Third and finally, for tenant, advocate for change. See something, say something. If things are not right, report it to the proper authorities, okay? I hope that this was valuable. I hope that this was helpful. This is what I do each and every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is my pleasure. It is an absolute joy to share information, to help, and to positively bring about change in the rental community. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And again, for those of you who are interested, if you know someone who is looking to find and apply for affordable housing Section 8, email me. As a matter of fact, you can go to the website tenantlife.com, www.tenantlife. Life is spelled with a Y, Lyfe. We do have another workshop coming up next week. That is our Black Friday special. You pay for 1 session, you get another session for free. It has been a game changer for people who are looking for affordable housing. Affordable housing Section 8 programs, they are everywhere in the United States, including Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and we have someone here from New Mexico. Section 8, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, is available, and a lot of places are opening their lists. And so I'm happy, my team and I are happy to provide those resources and those tools to those who are in need. All right. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. That's my email address right there. Email me, sign up for the class, like, tag, and share. And also go on over to that YouTube page and subscribe to my channel so that you'll know when I'm live and online. And I'll see you all next Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, have a happy Thanksgiving. If you don't celebrate, I hope that this week is enjoyable for you. Please be safe, and I look forward to seeing you all next week, 7:30. And again, I am Carissa Spann, the abundantly blessed landlord and tenant expert. See you next week.